Elie Wiesel is a name that may or may not sound familiar to you. He was one of the survivors of the Holocaust and won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1986. He is also the gentleman who's known for the quote, "The opposite of love isn't hate, it is indifference." So this week I've spent a lot of time meditating on what is love, how does love look in my life, and on a personal level, on a grander spectrum of things, how does it look in my life as a Christian, how am I supposed to act? And a quote that had been stuck with me was, "The opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear." So one of the quotes that came from Elie's acceptance speech when he won the Nobel Peace Prize says, "Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Wherever men or women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe." So he stands up and essentially says here, we can't be indifferent. If we know something's going on, we have to say something about it. So he goes into, in other parts of the speech and in other documents, about, as a little boy looking at the father saying, "Why is this happening? Why isn't anybody stopping this? Doesn't anybody know that this is happening? How can this crime happen in this time?" So we start to look, I start to examine, okay, well, if I'm being indifferent about something, is it out of fear that I'm not saying something then? When I look in the Catechism, in paragraph 1765, it talks about how love is the attraction of the good, how it's a desire toward goodness. And then the apprehension of evil causes hatred, aversion, and fear of the impending evil. And then further on in paragraph 2094, it talks about the sins against God's love. And the very first one there is indifference. And that follows with ingratitude, lukewarmness, sloth, and hatred of God. When we look in 1 John, we see that perfect love drives out fear. And that in God's perfect love and what he initially intended for us before the fall of man, that we have this perfect love where there is no fear. We aren't afraid to say, what we stand and believe for, because all that existed was that perfect love, was that desire for goodness. And when we look at the definition of love, it's a deep affection, it's pleasing, it's desired. Hate is a passionate dislike and a strong aversion to something. And fear is an unpleasant emotion. It's apprehension or anxiety against the unknown, or being afraid of something that might put somebody in danger. So we have this opportunity. When we look around us and we see, like Ellie said, when the dignity of humanity is threatened, when we look at abortion in the world, or we look at anything else, we have to stand up and actually say something about it, because if we just sit back and we're indifferent about it, and that's on the larger spectrum of things. When we look at our day-to-day life and we look at who we're loving and, every person that we meet, what can God teach me through this person? How can I grow as a person knowing this person? And what can I do to selflessly love them and not have myself be the center of what's gained from this interaction? So we have this opportunity now to understand that the opposite of love isn't hate, it is indifference. It's being apathetic. It's being complacent with where everything is and not standing up for what we truly believe. So I want to challenge you in this new year to just move forward and overcome the fear. List the fears that you may have if you're avoiding something. Just figure out what it is that's holding you back from loving to the fullest. And I can assure you that God will promise a reward through that. So definitely stay tuned for next week. I will be back again next Sunday, and I hope you guys all had a very happy new year, and I will talk to you again soon. Have a great night.